Today, I'm here to talk to you about NDT Level III certification and a little bit about what it takes to get your Level 3. This was my study book from 1995. Yours could be thinner, yours could be wider, but they're all pretty big. And you know what? You can't ever put everything in a Level 3 manual because there's just so many sources from which you could populate your chapters. So they'll all be a little bit different, but this particular one is for working in the service business for heat exchangers. And your training manual from your employer is going to have a lot of employee specific or employer specific material in it. If you work for a plant that manufactures ball bearings, you're probably going to have some ball bearing inspection procedures in here. If you're going for your UT Level 3 and you inspect, pipe welds with UT, you're going to have some of those in here. I happened to, at the time at least, examine a lot of heat exchangers, so there's heat exchanger inspection procedures in here. Now, to get your Level 3 certification, you have to take 3 exams, usually. The basic covers all the other NDT methods to a Level 2 proficiency and covers materials and processes, procedure, interpretation, and things like that. So you have to pass the basic, difficult test because you have to know a lot about NDT in general, all the methods. You have to know a lot about materials. Then, once you've successfully passed the basic exam, which is normally 120 questions, and you don't necessarily have to do them in order, but before you get a certificate saying you're Level 3, you got to pass them both. So the second one would be the method exam. So that would be the method for which you're seeking NDT Level 3 certification in. In my case, it was ET, electromagnetic testing, which covers RFT, ACFM, and eddy current. So that's what my cert is in. The method is going to be Level 3 type questions and Level 1 and Level 2. It's going to have them all. And you're going to have about 120 of them, and same thing. You got to interpret procedures, you got to interpret graphs, you got to know scientific notation, power, exponentials and powers of 10, all those things. You might need that to interpret graphs. The Greek alphabet, there's a lot of symbols in eddy current. You got to know a lot about units, metric, millimeter, and you got inches or mils. There's a lot of formulas you'll be expected to have familiarity with, at least, and a lot of those came from different parts of the world where they use different units, right? So you got to know a little bit about unit conversion and those type of calculations. You may also be asked to do a practical exam. When I took my CGSB Level 3 in Canada in 96, I believe it was, I also had to take practical, which was examining a section of aircraft wing, aircraft wheel, and then some liftoff tests, conductivity tests, and then do some tube testing of ferrous and non-ferromagnetic tubing. So that was a pretty comprehensive practical. Other companies in the United States, those companies where the employees that are certified are routinely doing heat exchanger examinations, for their practical, they're most likely going to have a tube inspection data analysis practical exam. So they'll be giving a data set with a bunch of tubes in it, and they have to find and report all the correct flaws. If you take the ASNT NDT Level 3, that one does not have a practical, but they rely on your employer to take care of that part of the proficiency demonstration. So if you take the ASNT NDT Level 3, you'll just have to have the basic and the method. But when I say just, those are two, large endeavors to undertake. But I think it's a goal that everybody should seek if they're going to stay in the field, because that, gives you a certain level of credibility, just because you have to know a lot to pass those exams. Now, also in this big 10-pound thick book, there's going to be a lot of question and answer sections probably, so you can practice for your exams. ASNT offers some question and answer books for level 1, level 2, and level 3 in all of the methods. So I would recommend getting those publications from the ASNT website. And I always go through those things until I can get, close to 100% on all of them. And if I don't understand the ones that I get wrong, I always try to go look up a reference, because the goal is not just to, memorize what the right answer should be, because some of the questions on the test may be similar to what's in these books, but you really want to know why the answer is the answer and understand the whole thing, not just memorize the answer, because that only hurts you in the long run. So once you can get close to 100% scores on the question and answer practice, that will give you some idea of how well you may do on the test. Not everybody passes level 3 tests first time. It's kind of like taking the bar exam for being an attorney, right? Sometimes it takes a few times, but each time you take it, you'll know, or you'll discover what you don't know, and also discover some things that you need to, brush up on a little bit to increase your odds passing the next go around. So you got the question and answer practice, you've got your materials and processes section. Now, you're probably going to have some regulatory documents in here, or maybe some industry standards. If you're a heat exchanger guy, probably have to study up on the ASME, or the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. If you're in the military, you probably have mill standard procedures. We got the basic study guide from ASNT, which you can order from the ASNT website. ASNT also offers level 3 study guides for each method. I highly recommend picking those up. Got a copy of ASNT TC1A, which is guidelines for training programs. Then you have the ASNT standard for qualification and certification of NDT personnel, CP189. As a level 3, you need to know about the content of both of those documents and understand them, because they have the framework for a good certification program. Sometimes you may need to interpret things in the certification guidelines and standards. So there's sample interpretation questions. And we got, let's see, certain sections of the ASME code here that talk about equipment calibration. And then towards the end of this big book, we start to have company procedures. This was the company I worked for at the time. Since they were a tube testing company, there was procedures on how to inspect tubes using the multi-frequency eddy current technique. If this was your level 3 book and you were inspecting nothing but pipe welds on the oil pipeline in Alaska using RT, you'd have a bunch of RT procedures in here. You'd have a bunch about radiation source safety. Let's see what else. Nomenclature. You got to learn all the nomenclature and the vernacular used in your specific method and industry sector. The word defect doesn't mean the same thing in every sector and organization. Neither is flaw, neither is indication. They all can have very different meanings. So it's always important to understand who your audience is and understand the language that works for that audience, and the language that is defined in whatever industry you're working in. All right, we got some metallurgy. Oh, you got to know a bit about metallurgy too. Cubic centered structures and face centered structures, heat treating, annealing, case depth. A lot of that's not very exciting unless you're a metallurgist, then it might be exciting, but to me it wasn't. But it's things that you have to learn about if you're going to be a level 3, because you have to know a lot about metals. You have to be a metal expert, at least for eddy current. You might have to be an expert in plastics if you're doing RT and you're doing nothing but X-raying plastics. So you have to be an expert in whatever you're examining. Math, you're going to have to brush up on some math. Now, if you take an ASNT exam at a testing center, you're going to have to use a specific type of calculator, and it's not going to be a physical calculator. It's going to be a virtual calculator on your CBT computer. It's a Texas Instruments TI-36, I think it is, but they'll tell you on the ASNT website. But you got to learn how to use that calculator before the exam, because the last thing you want to do is come to a formula and it's the last question you need to pass your test, and then come to find out you don't know how to use the functions on that particular calculator. So always do the practice sessions when you do the CBT test. Here I have a list of conductivities for a bunch of different metals, because when I'm an eddy current guy, you care about conductivities. I got a glossary, it has all the terms for eddy current. So anyway, that's just what's in my level 3 study book. And I don't have to pop this open too much anymore, because once you take the basic, you normally don't have to take it again. And depending on your written practice, you may have to take the method exam every certification period, which is for level 3 is 5 years normally. Or sometimes you can recertify by points. So you can keep an ASNT Level 3 certificate valid by going to training seminars, maybe giving a training class, taking part in some sort of round robin research. All those things can be used to rack up points. Then you need a certain number of points, and you have to, document all that stuff and show the ASNT. And then when you meet the requirements, then you can maintain an ASNT Level 3 cert by points. But for me, unfortunately, I have to take it by exam because my employer doesn't offer the point system. So again, this was just meant to be a general discussion on what it takes to become a level 3. And it's, of course, not an all-inclusive list, right? But just some ideas. It takes a bit of preparation and dedication and ambition, but anybody can get there. Like anything else, it just takes a little bit of time and dedication, and you can get your level 3 too. Thank you.